All right, we've got our recording started. Hi, Eunice. Hi, Ebony. Who else has joined? Jessica. Thank you guys for being here. Feel free to have cameras on if you would like. I would love for a little bit of interaction here today. Just checking in to see what intrigued everybody about today's session. What was it about the title or the description that made you want to register? I'm glad that you're all here. So as you think about that, feel free to pop into the chat. For those who I don't know, I think I know most of you, but my name is Brittany Hendricks, and I am glad that you're here. Today's session is really just about helping you to reconnect with the aligned version of yourself. Many of us have personal lives, business lives, and at times can disconnect. And we want to lead from a place of purpose, not pressure. I think there's a lot of us in seasons where we feel a lot of pressure to perform, and we should be able to do that peacefully. So a lot of today will be about not typical leadership and not what people necessarily talk about in terms of getting things done from the strategic perspective, or I'm now hearing about fractional leadership, which I'll probably talk a little bit about if there's time at the end. But there's so many new buzzwords around that. But I just want to bring us back to a place of peace and center. And so as we think about today's session, Francisco, you mentioned, so the word alignment hit for some people. Thanks, Jessica. Francisco, your wife and I were just talking about alignment. Okay. So as we go through today, I'm very curious to understand what exactly that means for you. And we'll talk through that. As we jump into the session, just a couple things to know about me. I am a talent development professional, so most of you know me and have found me through LinkedIn or just personal. I am also a certified leadership coach and facilitator. I am also recently a certified ICF coach. So I completed my ACC exam last Friday and I passed. So I love coaching. I love helping leaders to really understand more about who they are, what their values are, how they lead. And with that, let's jump into your invitation for realignment. So I want to take a moment here for you to ground yourself. Some of you probably are having lunch. Before we dive in, I want you to really kind of shake things off and think about what brought you here today and allow yourself to just arrive. And as we go through this session, we're going to learn what aligned leadership really means, how emotional intelligence can show up, and how resilience goes hand in hand with that. We'll also learn a couple of tools from my playful power method, which is something that can help you to pause, to recenter, and realign anytime and anywhere. So these tools can also help you not just professionally, but also personally. All right. As we dig in here, a couple things I've been seeing and noticing. Many leaders do feel that they are pulled in so many directions, and myself being a mother, having a career, and just family life, caregiving, the expectations, it can be a bit overwhelming. And so there are a lot of people who've been sharing stories, which kind of inspired me to host this type of workshop and bring this to different teams and also groups that I work with. Also in one-on-one coaching that I do, this is a theme that pops up. People who are getting promoted, people are raising families, and they're not sure at some point how the alignment slipped, and that may not even have been on their mind. And so there is something we can do about that. And the first question as we get here that I want to ask, I'm going to pull up a poll. And I'd like for you to think about this for your own personal situation. How has leadership felt for you lately? And I want you to choose the answer that most reflects your current leadership energy. There's no wrong answer here. And just even this week, I know it's only Thursday, we've got another day ahead of us. What has this week been like for you? Give a couple more seconds. I know some of you may not have responded. So many of you aren't alone in feeling this tension between being grounded and showing up strong and then being able to perform in your roles. So let me go ahead and I don't know if you guys can see the results here. Let me share those with you. So many of you, it seems, a couple of you energized but overwhelming, and then purposeful but heavy, emotionally draining. You do feel aligned and centered. So whoever feels aligned and centered, I want to know what your secret is to making sure you're feeling that this week. So I just want you all to take a moment. We don't have to talk about why you chose the answer you chose, but just take a moment to think about being honest about that emotion that you feel this way, and then how we can possibly move further into alignment. What's keeping you drained? What's keeping you in this space that's a little uncomfortable? And as we get into the topic at hand, I want us to take a look at the cost of misalignment. This is very important for us to consider signs of misalignment, and some of this may be contributing to how you're showing up today and how this week has been. I want you to consider what overachievement may look like for you. Some of you, most of you are high performers from what I know. And some of that kind of masks deeper personal emotional wounds. It could be you have to prove your worth to someone, you want to people please, you're afraid you may not be enough, you don't want to seem like you don't know everything. And a lot of us tend to operate from fear at times, and that creates alignment, it creates burnout, because we're doing these things that we're masking something that we're not acknowledging. So taking some time to do that is really important. And some of the signs of a misalignment, most commonly you can see here on the screen. When we lead from the misaligned place, what tends to happen, we start to see patterns of the overfunctioning. We start doubting ourselves. We're just reacting to everything. We're scrambling, and then we can get burnt out. And that is something that is absolutely not going to be sustainable. You can't operate from that place of burnout. When your car runs out of gas, or for those of you with electric vehicles, the battery burns up, you literally have to buy another car, another battery. You cannot function that way. So it might look like you're successful on the outside, but inside you're tired, you're disconnected and unclear. And so alignment doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. It means that there can be congruence between who you are and how you are leading, whether that's leading at home or leading at work. So let's take a moment to talk about how overachievement masks these deeper emotional wounds. So the people pleasing, the fear of not being enough. I'm going to pop up another quick poll because I'd like to see what you're thinking and where you're at in regards to this. This is something that many of us haven't really thought much about until we come to a session and somebody asks, what's causing you this week the stress? What's really getting in the way? And when you're out of alignment as a leader, what tends to suffer first? So as you look at these different options, it could be all of them, but just for yourself, think about what do you tend to notice the most? Or it could be everything. This is all about self-awareness. And as I work with different leaders and different teams, they come together, they want to build trust. They want their team to gel better. They want to get through conflict. There might be changes happening in the organization. And then they wonder, why do we feel so disconnected? Why didn't they read the email that was sent? Why are they saying they don't understand? The clarity that is lacking, or the transparency is lacking. You're often hearing these things because you have to meet people where they are. Most times you're not going to receive the email on a day where you probably aren't feeling fully aware, mentally there. Your energy is low. Um, if you're not feeling most confident, or you don't feel like you can make proper decisions, it's going to affect your team. There's going to be a ripple effect. There's a leader I was recently speaking with who did a 360 assessment, and her team gave her feedback, and she was very upset when we spoke. She felt like, I've always had my team's back. I don't know why they're talking about me like this. Like, she was just so upset. And after we dug into it, her reaction was just a natural. When we hear feedback that's not so great, it stings, but it doesn't mean that it's something that you can't change. And after you really start thinking about what are those things that my team might be seeing, what are the things that I might be doing without even realizing it that are affecting my team, how can I change that? Because in that example, she's over functioning and overachieving because she works from a place of high pressure, but her team felt like she wasn't being very transparent because she wasn't giving them enough information. And it's not because she didn't want to, it's because she was working at such a speed of her overachievement and just reactive state that they felt like she's not telling us something because she's so worried about getting things done. And that's the kind of stuff that we have to think about as leaders when you slow down and you stop and wonder, how are my behaviors impacting my team and what can I do about that? So just taking time to find that alignment, getting your clarity, making sure that your confidence is there, making sure your relationships are intact, all of those things matter. So let's keep this moving along. So it's not just a personal feeling, and productivity drain does create some retention risk, especially teams that have lost a lot of people. I know some organizations have lost quite a few people, especially returning to the office, hybrid work, remote work. There's so many different things happening in the world, but burnout is real. And you can go look at some of the additional research, but I think it's important for us to stop and say, like, we can't act like there's nothing we can do about this. So in 2024, there were 56% of leaders who were burnt out. And they're more likely to quit when they are. They're either going to go find something else or consider, how can I retire earlier? Or how can I go start my own business and get free from this? And so it's surging. And as leaders, you may be feeling this way, but there are things that you can contribute to for your teams and for yourselves. What can you be thinking about and doing differently? And that's where I want to introduce the Playful Power method, which are the 4 anchors that I work with. And it really helps leaders to kind of step back and stay grounded. And I'll jump into these 4 so you can see them here. This is about resilience. And so when you think about these 4 areas, the 4 C's, easy to remember, it's clarity, courage, communication, and consistency. So when you get very clear on what's happening around you and you're looking outside of yourself, not just within, I feel burnt out, I feel misaligned. Okay, great, but why? And what's happening around you? So when you've got that clarity, to start considering what is causing this burnout, what is causing that misalignment. Then you have the awareness to stay in real time. Don't allow the emotions of what's happening around you to impact what you're doing at the moment, the meetings that you're in, the conversations that you're having with your team. The second is courage. And that's the ability to emotionally regulate and have safety in your own body. And most times, out of fear, we start to see people show up in conflict. We may see people completely shut down in a meeting. We may see people have an outburst, they get emotional, they get aggressive. Depending on what your natural styles are, when we get into defense mode, it may look like we're withdrawing, or we get a little more direct, more assertive. And so being aware of that, again, is giving you the moment to just pause and realize, in this moment, I'm uncomfortable and I don't want my team to feel that. So how can I take a pause and reframe how I'm showing up? And then that's the communication piece. How are you going to communicate in that moment? If you're coming from a place of frustration and you communicate in a frustration manner, your team is going to hear that. They're going to feel that. And it's about also knowing what you do beyond your job title. And the last one here is consistency. So if you're able to do this regularly, you can reclaim your voice, you can maintain your confidence, the boundaries that you have, the choices that you're making, and you're able to lead with more clarity, courage, communication regularly. And that when that's in flow, you truly do show up as your most aligned self, regardless of what's happening outside of in the world, regardless of happening at home, the next meeting that you have to go to. And you do become a better leader because you're not just getting results at that point, you're leaving a ripple effect for your team and the people that you work with, those who are connected to you that you come in contact with. And the ripple effects can be negative or positive. With this alignment, they will be positive. So let's do a quick check-in. And this is one of the first regulation tools that I have designed to help you kind of pause and return to center in just a minute. And so I'd like for you to ask yourself, where is your body right now? Where are you tense? Where's your mind? Is it racing? Is it scattered? Is your spirit inspired? Is it disconnected? Do you feel drained? And I'd invite you to just take a moment and try this with me. Close your eyes for just 30 seconds and just think about whatever brought you here and how you've been feeling and showing up this week. How can we just let that go and make the decision now to move differently through the rest of our afternoon and for the rest of this week and possibly through this weekend? Take a breath and just notice. Don't try to fix anything. Notice your presence. Take your breath. Let the tension fall. Try to control your thoughts. And just consider, what can I do differently for the rest of today, for the rest of this week? And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And if you're comfortable, put into the chat. I'd love to know. Didn't mean to push that poll out yet. I'd love to know what you noticed during that check-in with yourself. Go ahead, type into the chat. For me, I will say one of the biggest things I've noticed just this week is my ability to stay present at work and my ability to kind of compartmentalize and block time to do certain things. That's something I'm trying to do differently and do better so that I can make sure my mind isn't scattered everywhere. Taking time to just breathe. Any other things come to mind for anyone? Anything you noticed? Tension on the left side, committing to release that and stay present. Joni, I have had to go get a massage this week because my left side is like numb at this point, right under my shoulder blade. I don't know what that is. And Francisco, being in alignment is a constant realigning, not cruise control. That's true. I love the way you put that, because I'm thinking about when you're driving on the road, and if you try to put the car in cruise control, there's going to be bumps along the way. There's probably turns that are going to need to be made, adjustments that need to be made, and you can't just cruise on through. Very important. So I'd like you to kind of think about this now, and this is the poll I meant to come up, so I'll add it here again. What or how often do you check in with yourself? I know we just did this. Quick 30 seconds. But if you're being honest, when's the last time you did something like that during the day? Anytime this week? And just knowing that you're able to do this a bit more often and make it a regular practice. It's so interesting, you know, we're so busy all the time and we don't stop to pause. It's a simple practice and it changes everything for us when it's done consistently. And I believe it was a Jay Shetty podcast that I heard, but it was so funny because it was just like a slap in the face. Like, we breathe every single day. It's literally like when we stop breathing, it's not a good thing. We can practice doing all of these other things, but for some reason, the thing that continues to keep us alive is something we don't really practice. We just take for granted the breaths that we have. We're not actively counting all the breaths every day. And not that we need to, but just knowing that your breath is what keeps you alive. It's what literally you breathe life into yourself and others. So why would you not just be a little more intentional about pausing to take breaths that can be healing? And I know even holding tension, releasing tension, just by breathing more can probably help with that. So yeah, many of you occasionally, rarely, you're working on it. Hopefully we can get to the point where we're doing this daily and that it is part of your leadership practice, even if it's just for 1 minute. And some of us sometimes need a reminder. You can throw a calendar reminder. Don't forget to breathe. Task, check it off. However your mind works. I'm somebody who lives off of a calendar, so I often have to remind myself, get up and go take a walk. Get up and go say hi to someone. Get out of the screen. Get out of your head. And it will become a practice and consistent over time. But those gentle reminders to ourselves are really helpful if you need them. So I've got another framework that I want to share with you, and this is the empowered response framework. So when you start to feel triggered or challenged or misaligned, this is really to help shift from that reactional state to the intentional state, where you're able to really stop and pause. So taking the breath, you name what you're actually feeling. So you've got that tension, then you reframe it. What's another way I can think about this? And this works really well when you're having a conversation with someone or you need to provide feedback to someone and that conversation isn't going so great, or you anticipate it not being the best. How do you get this back on track? And look at things from another perspective. So that's the reframe before you respond. And it's okay to pause. You probably felt a little awkward sitting here for 30 seconds, breathing on a video call with people you don't know. But it's okay. It's not that awkward. And taking a pause in a conversation to just stop and think feels a lot more long than it really is. And so I would invite you to do that. And so I don't know if any of you have any sort of examples or things I invite you just to think about now. I'll have some I can share, but I'd love to hear from any of you if you're willing to. What sort of workplace scenarios come to mind where you recently had a conversation or you were in a situation and you wish after you look back that you might have handled it a little differently, where it could have been feedback got misinterpreted or there was a bit of resistance from someone on your team? Feel free to pop off mute if anything comes to mind. A conversation perhaps that you had at home with a child, with a spouse.
Brittany, I'll share.
Go ahead, Joni.
So, for me, I notice when I get kind of in an overwhelmed place, and if you're familiar with DISC behavioral styles, I'm a high I, high D. So I'm typically people first focused, but when I get overwhelmed, and perhaps I've been doing a lot of new things lately, and so my high D kicks in, and I start kind of like barking orders unintentionally. And so my admin is a high SD, and so she just kind of, we've worked together long enough now that she used to just take it, but now she will say, okay, I need you to help me with pre-prioritizing instead of like bing 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 bing, like do all of this. Because she does want to help and support. And so it's me learning to take that pause in the moment when I'm feeling that overwhelm. Like I need to pause myself and not end up taking it out on someone else by like, here, make all this happen in the next hour.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you brought up so the like the disc styles I'm familiar with. So the D, the I is more of the fast-paced style and task focused. And so when you are a fast-paced, get it done kind of person, I was talking to somebody the other day. They said, I'm a GSD. Like, what is that? They said, that means get shit done. Okay. That's a nice little acronym. Same thing. You have to get it done. That's all that matters. But when you're working with someone like your admin, who's more of a slower paced, not so action oriented, but relationship focused, and this, not to get a whole tangent on the different styles, but we are a blend of everything when it comes to, we like to get it done, we want to be focused, but we also want to build relationships, we want to take our time, but depending on the situation, we kind of flex between different things. Jessica, you're in SI. So yeah, more of the steadiness comes out, more of the relationship style. Lisa, thank you for being here. So yeah, our styles come out depending on the situation too. So again, if you're comfortable and you work with somebody long enough, you can call out, hey, I'm starting to notice you're getting a little bit too quick here. You're getting a little bossy. Just take a step back when you pause and realize where you're at. You can always make a change. Just take a pause and shift direction. The next question that I'm going to pop up here is, what shows up when you're under pressure? Which of these patterns tend to come up when you're feeling disempowered? And Joni, you just mentioned kind of like hurry up, get it done. A little bit of the control might pop in. So Jessica, you're an SI. And I mean, SI, I would assume, is more of the avoiding conflict, possibly people pleasing. And that shows up in teams where you've got a lot of conflict, and then you've got the person who sits back and is like, I'm not getting in this, but they're observing everything. And they're usually the best person to go to after and say, what just happened? And how could we have not derailed there?
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Is I'm the person. I'm not necessarily mostly people pleasing, but I am the level kind of voice of reason after the fact, and trying to, just bring more clarity to the group as to what just happened, or explaining what just happened so that there isn't more dysfunction. So,
Yeah. And that's needed. There are many teams I've worked with that do not have someone, like a lot of sales teams where they're just getting things done, and there's no one to kind of take a step back to say, what could we have done differently?
mhm.
Let's have a conversation about this, because that overachieving and over functioning and the sales mind and just getting things done gets in the way. But it's always good to have someone on the team that you can kind of use to the strength they have of being able to keep the calm, take a beat, and just redirect.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, in the middle of chaos and when deadlines need to get met, that tends to be pushed and not really appreciated. But in the moments where you may have a retrospective and you think, what could we have done differently, is when that may show up.
Yeah.
So here's a bit of the results from this poll. So we've got some people: control, micromanagement, people pleasing, over functioning. There are a lot of teams also I've worked with that they'll mention withdrawing. They just step back. And that's not always the worst thing to do. It's okay to step back at times, but I would also say it's important to come back and make sure you don't just disregard everything. So if there's ever times that you seem to step away, just always think, when can I come back to finish this conversation at a better time? Or if you need time to think about something before you respond, that's okay too. All right. So in the chat, I want you to complete this sentence. And as we've thought through today, we've gone through a few different things you probably consider: how you're showing up, how you're feeling, what your go-to behaviors are. And I'd just like to ask, what can you lead with more of? And you fill in the blank. I got a few ideas thrown in here, but what could you possibly lead the rest of this week with? More peace, more joy, more patience, more presence, peace and understanding. And hold yourself to that. Whoever you can possibly share that with, share it and let them know, hey, I want to make sure I'm leading with more peace or more presence for the rest of the week. And can you call me out if I'm not? Or if you see I'm doing something that isn't, where that's not showing up? That's always a great way to just hold yourselves accountable and allow for others to. And especially as you're leading teams or even at home, when you ask for someone to hold you accountable, it also gives you the space to hold them accountable in a safer way. So if you're expecting something of someone, share that and share what you would like for them to hold you to. Going back to one of the leaders I mentioned, going through the 360 after going through everything and calming down and realizing the feedback wasn't so bad. The team does like me. They just want me to slow down a little bit because they do feel my stress. And so, would it be okay for me to let them know I'm working on this? And so I asked, are you comfortable letting them know that you're working on this? And if you are, yes, if you're comfortable letting someone know what you're working on, it's always great. I mean, the amount of trust that you can build, the relationships that you can strengthen just by that vulnerability of sharing, hey, I know that this is one of my downfalls. This is one of the areas I can improve in. This is a derailer. This is, something I want to work on. And trusting them and sharing that with them, it makes people feel good to know that you're able to trust them and be vulnerable. And then again, if you're leading a team and you're asking things of them, they'll probably want to share more with you rather than thinking and looking at you as though you're perfect, or you think you are perfect and you think you have nothing to improve, because that's not true. We all do. And I think the best leaders are the ones who can stop and say, hey, this is where I'm showing up this week and hadn't been great, but this is what I'm working on. You get so much more credibility as a leader and a team that really wants to work with you because they see you as a human and not some robot or perfect image of who they may think you are and the perception that they have. So you're not behind, and I want to invite you all to realign. We've done a little bit of exercises today, just a couple of these things. I do have a Peace and Power playbook and an Empowered Leader playbook. Happy to send those to you if you don't have it. It's got a lot more tools and things you can use. So I'll make sure after this session that I send those to you with the recording. And I do want to leave you with a final line before we jump to the next steps and more things that can come. The world does not need more exhausted achievers. It needs more aligned leaders. And that starts with you. So if you feel this has been helpful and you're interested in continuing any work together, I have a code here you're welcome to scan. If you would like to talk with me one-on-one, feel free to book 20 minutes. We can dig into a little bit of your own personal, what you're working on, how I can help support you. I'll also make sure I send you the playbooks that I mentioned. They do have quite a bit of tools, resources to use, tips to share, quotes, and feel free to share that with your teams as well. And my work, truly, the more that I go on, the more that I experience in business and in life, is just really rooted in helping people remember who they are before leadership asked them to forget, before the job took over, before the role that you stepped into took center stage. And so I like to just say thank you for showing up fully today. And with that, any questions, any thoughts, any comments before we wrap up?
Thank you for this, Brittany. It was helpful to pause and take the moments to reflect.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, Brittany, I don't know how often you're going to be doing this, but I think it's really helpful to give people an opportunity to just zoom into something that lets them, that reminds them of kind of the important things in life, right? Being present and realigning and all that stuff. So it's super easy nowadays to just log into a Zoom call and have a group of people that are all trying to, I guess for the lack of a better word, realign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here, and I'm glad that this was helpful. I will continue doing more of these sessions over the next few months. So yeah, if there's anybody that you would recommend, have them check out the guide, send them to my site. Like I said, feel free to check in with me if you want to talk more one-on-one. But yes, we need more people to just slow down and remember what the important things are in life, because that does help us to show up as better versions of ourselves more consistently. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.